Hello, everybody. So we're gonna wait a few minutes to give people a chance to pop in, see how everybody's doing before we get going here. No, this might be a slower night because I know there's some other stuff going on. I know the State of the Union's going on. I know that Texas primary is going on. So um, I am aware that there's some other stuff going on, obviously, but hopefully we'll still have a nice night tonight with everybody. As I said, we're just waiting on people to show up and say hi and stuff like that. Hope everybody's having a good day and having a good week thus far. La dee dee da dee da, la dee dee da dee da, la dee dee da dee da, la dee dee da dee da. Oh, there's some. Hey, Intense Webs. Howdy, howdy, parking here tonight. Yeah, we're just giving people a chance to come in. Ten Webs. I'm just waiting on some more people to show up before we get started. And if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream so that we can so we can see if we can get some more friendly people in here, that'd be nice. Let's see now. Yeah, so I hope everybody's having a good night tonight. Hmm. Just waiting to see if a few more people show up before we get started here. Oh, oops. Actually, I didn't intend to actually call. I was trying to just. Hmm. And I do thank you guys for the likes and shares. Hey, RJ, did you hit? Yes, I did. I accidentally hit the redial when I went over there. I was simply just trying to message you that I was on. I was gonna type it out, but then it like I must have accidentally hit the phone icon or whatever. I didn't mean to redial, but Yeah, so we got at least two of us here. Maybe if we get one more, then I'll get going right away here. But otherwise, no, I know Intense Webs popped in hit there for a moment. Um, yeah. So, anyways, I hope you guys have been have a good day today and are having a good week thus far. RJ, I know you had a night off from broadcasting tonight. um, oh, here, okay. Alrighty then. So YouTube's being a little screwy with me right now with the count. Anyways, all right. Well, if we have, it looks like we have three people here, so I guess I will go ahead and kind of get going right away here. Then, here's what's on tap for tonight. I guess you can say I kind of have five stories, two comics related, one anime related, and a couple pro wrestling related. The three first stories are all from bounding into comics, and then the wrestling stories are just stuff from what I watched on videos earlier. Um, so here's what's on tap for tonight. So we know that DC is planning to do a little bit of race swapping with their latest Batman Beyond title, Batman Beyond. Let's see, Batman Beyond, The White Knight in Order. They plan on race swapping Terry McGinnis. Marvel writer Kieran Gillen talks about his upcoming Immortal X-Men series. On the anime side of it, Funimation is getting absorbed into Crunchyroll as as that deal that Sony is finally getting a chance to finalize. Um, I know Yellow Flash did a video on it earlier as well. So did Hero Hey, and they were talking about how there probably will be some firings, as obviously they're trying to consolidate the companies. So they'll probably now as to who exactly will get let go, we don't know yet. You know, as 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 is the case, these things do take time. And then on the pro wrestling side of it, we got some WrestleMania 38 news, which is coming up in a little less than a month. We also have some news in regards to the NWA Crockett Cup, and I'll explain a little bit of that history too when we get what the Crockett Cup is and all that um, when we get to that point. So, without any further ado, since do have three people here, I'm just going to go ahead and get started on the news on the newscast here. So here we go. All right, and of course, as always, guys, feel free. You guys have any comments or questions you want to add to the conversation? Go ahead and throw them out there, and if I can, if they're questions, and if I can answer them, I'll do my best to do so. Anyways, let's get to this first article. And you see Terry McGinnis as voiced by Will Friedle from the late 90s, early 2000s, part of the DTAU. So Terry McGinnis to be race swapped for Batman Beyond, The White Knight in Order, in quotes here, to diversify the line. Article by Spencer Bakuli, published today. Oh, here we go. Based seemingly on the false assumptions of a number of Batman Beyond fans and a desire to quote unquote diversify the line, DC Comics author Sean Gordon Murphy has revealed that in the upcoming Batman Beyond the White Knight series, Terry McGinnis will be race swapped to be half Asian. So again, using comics to to push an agenda, push a narrative. Batman Beyond Volume 6, Number 21, Target Batman Part 2, 2018, variant cover by Dave Johnson here. The DC Animated Universe successor to the Cal, Terry, was born the first son of Mary and Warren McGinnis, the latter of whom had their DNA rewritten to mimic Bruce Wayne's in a plot by the Dark Knight to sire and now I actually watched that. I've seen that episode, that epilogue episode. I don't exactly think the plan to sire a new Batman wasn't Bruce Wayne who initiated that. It was actually Amanda Waller from Project Cadmus. Initially, it was believed to be Wayne, but it wasn't Wayne who. They even say in the episode that Amanda Waller, voiced by CCH Founder, even stated that she was the one who had his DNA rewritten. So that's a little bit of a um, as established by the Justice League Unlimited episode epilogue, both of whom were very plainly white individuals. And in fact, Warren McGinnis, who was voiced by Michael Gross of Family Ties fame, was, well, they're both redhead. It's kind of funny. They're both redheaded. However, thanks to the slim eyes and black hair of Terry's character, design, many fans have come to falsely believe that the futuristic Gotham crime fighter possesses some sort of Asian heritage. No, because basically Bruce Wayne is not Asian, neither are his parents. Yet, despite this interpretation of Terry's ethnicity being nothing more than a widely assumed headcanon, Murphy's version of the young crime fighter will take inspiration from this misconception about the hero, establishing him as having some level of Asian background when he debuts in the fifth entry of the White Knight series. Quote, the trick with Terry for me was how to make him a little different, unquote, Murphy told Screen Rant during a recent interview, giving in promotion of Beyond the White Knight. And I absolutely just hate, I dislike that title because with how we use White Knight, particularly when we're talking about like SJWs, it just screams push narrative, push agenda. It anytime I see that, it kind of gets on my nerves. I want to wring the neck. It's like I'm tempted to go and wring the necks of, not that I would actually do it, mind you. But I'm tempted to go wring the necks of the people who thought that was a great idea for a title there, especially in today's world. Anyways, okay. Quote, I didn't want to just mirror exactly what happened with the Batman Beyond cartoon series. I wanted to make it unique but sort of familiar at the same time, unquote. No, Mr. Murphy, you wanted to push an agenda. You figured this would be the perfect way to push an agenda. Quote, one of the things I really wanted to do is make him half Asian. I didn't realize this, but a ton of people, including myself, always assumed Terry was half Japanese and half Irish, or something. He continued. If you know anything about the cartoon, that's totally BS because you know again, are you gonna also so what you'd have to do is you'd either have to assume that one of the McGinnises is half Japanese, or that Bruce Wayne is half Japanese somehow, or full Japanese. Ah, what a bunch of morons. Ah. He continued, quote, only because there's so much kanji in Neo Gotham, and he has long black straight hair, like a lot of people mistake him for as being half Asian. Um, hey, newsflash: Bruce Wayne has long, dark, black hair. You ding dong. Again, newsflash: Bruce Wayne has long, black hair. Even though both of his parents are like extremely white. And the other genetic material that he got from Bruce Wayne, he's also Caucasian. Wayne's an English name. How people really went with this is beyond me. Hi, Sin Figuring. Welcome to the stream. I hope you're enjoying the content thus far. And if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people here, that'd be appreciated. Just going over this story about DC race swapping Terry McGinnis in the comics here. Batman Beyond the White Knight, Volume 1, art by Sean Gordon Murphy and Dave Stewart. Quote, so for this one, I decided to make his mom Asian and his dad is obviously Irish, just to finally create a new kind of Terry. Of course, we have to diversify the line, so we have to find some way to make it work. So I'm going to make the mom, who's a redhead. A redhead. Okay? And she was voiced by Terry Garr, by the way, in the in the Batman Beyond animated series. Just to let you guys know. Yeah, you got two redheaded parents, and then genetic material that comes from a long black haired, man. So I mean, anyways, quote, maybe it's just window dressing and it doesn't really affect the story that much, but I just thought it was an interesting way to break out my Terry from the other Terrys out there. And obviously to diversify the line, which is important. No, it's not. No, it's not. I mean, and you do have an Asian character in the series, Dana Tan, voiced by Lauren Tom, who is a Chinese American descent. The first issue of Murphy's Batman Beyond the White Knight is set to hit shelves on March 29th. So basically 4 weeks from today. What do you make of Murphy's race swapping of Terry McGinnis? Let us know your thought. As with any race swapping for just a purpose of pushing an agenda, I think it's stupid. That's what I think of it. What do you guys think of it? What do you guys think of the race swap? Oh, Batman wasn't even the White Knight in the series. Harley Quinn was. That was the reveal at the end of the first story arc. Oh, well, I didn't know that. Thanks for that clarification, RJ. So if there's a Batman Beyond White Knight, I guess the whole, I guess the White Knight will be Dee Dee and Dee Dee. Yeah, the Dee Dee twins. The Dee Dee twins, who were voiced by Melissa Joan Hart in the series, or in their appearances in the Justice League Unlimited series. The Batman I knew and loved in the 60s probably couldn't have put that hair under the cow. Hmm. Well, I don't know as much about that, but I know what you're talking. The '60s series with yeah, and I'm sure RJ as well, Critical Blast as well. We both grew up watching those shows, the '60s Batman series and syndication. Um. Oh yeah. So, but basically, my personal belief is race swapping just so you can push an agenda is stupid. Okay, and we've seen that it hasn't really worked um as well as they, whenever they try to push agendas and all that, it, just look at DC right now. Young Ripper was the one who first started calling it Dead Company. And I don't know if you guys had also heard, but not that I'm going to do a deep coverage on this, but DC got evicted from one of their buildings, and is now just being forced to share office space with another department, which tells you what Warner probably thinks of DC's current situation as well. So, anyways, um, before I move on to the next story, is there anything else you guys would like to add to what we were just talking about? If not, I'll move on. I'm going to give you guys a minute or two to see if you guys respond or want to add anything more to the comments about what we just read. All right. Well, it would seem that aside from myself, nobody else any more to say there. So I guess we will move on to the next article then. All right. So here's the next article. Kieran Gillen says his upcoming Immortal X-Men series is, quote, this love story of two women across time, unquote. Article by Spencer McQuilly, published earlier today. And Ted's what? Move on. Listening. Okay. That's what I'm doing. 23:42. Okay. That's the time there. All right. So here's our next article we're going to look at here. Marvel writer Kieran Gillen has teased that the relationship between Mystique and Destiny will take center stage in his upcoming Immortal X-Men series. Now, for those of you who might not know, Mystique, of course, is a shape-shifting mutant. Destiny is a blind mutant who has the ability to see the future. They were basically the and I believe in some of the comics they were like the adoptive mothers of Rogue. Announced on December 8th, Immortal X-Men will focus on Krakoa's Quiet Council, the shadowy governing body of the mutant nation of Krakoa, as they readjust to their new power structure following the revelatory events seen in Inferno, X Lives of Wolverine, and X Deaths of Wolverine. There's Mystique in the background there. Destiny. Inferno, Volume 2, Number 4, The Death of Moira X. I'm guessing that's Moira McTaggart. Words by Jonathan Hickman, art by Valerio Schiti, Stefano Castelli, and David Curiel. Quote, the Quiet Council rules the Krakoan age for better or worse, unquote, wrote Marvel in their official press release for the series. Quote, now shaken by Inferno and X Lives of Wolverine, X Deaths of Wolverine, they strive to hold together no matter how much they want to tear each other apart, unquote. Quote, take a seat in the room where it happens, unquote. The publisher then invited readers, quote, it being in smaller quotes, the most powerful people on earth deciding the fate of the whole planet, unsmaller quote. Prepare for sinister secrets. I guess it's not to be confused with Mr. Sinister, of course, to be revealed and learn that some secrets are more sinister than others, unquote. Let's see. All right. Speaking to Marvel in promotion of the series, Gillen asserted, quote, so the match is lit. An Immortal X-Men is a book about the burning, unquote, quote, to speak in a Hickmanian idiom, this is the new Avengers to Jerry in brackets Dugan's Avengers, quote unquote. He added, quote, this is the book about Krakoa and the Quiet Council with all its muffled screams. It's about a group of people, some of whom are convinced they're in the West Wing, some who have designs to be in House of Cards, and at least who knows they're in Veep. I guess they're making references to television shows that deal with power. Inferno Volume 2, Number 4, The Death of Moira X, and all that. The writer further boasted, quote, its big ideas, politics, fights, and fashion, lies, creation, and destruction, all told across the widest possible canvas in time and space, unquote. Quote, it's some characters I've written before with the volume turned up, unquote. He said, quote, it's me falling in love with some characters I've never touched. It's, oh boy. That line can be taken in so many ways. I gotta read that one again because that particular line right there could be taken in just so many ways. Quote, it's me falling in love with some characters I've never touched. Oh boy, that could be taken in so many ways. Uh it it's me somehow talking Marvel into paying me for having this much fun, unquote. Okay? There is just so much innuendo that could be implied there. Hey, Rick. Glad you're here. If you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, that'd be appreciated. See if we can get some more friendly people in here. Um, yeah, so yeah, I would think we all would wonder that, Rick. Um, has he touched any of the characters? I mean, the way he made that sound, it almost implies that he did. Ah, that's just so funny. Anyways, getting back to the article here. Um, the writer further boasted, quote, it. Oh, we already read that part. Actually, we read that part too. Now that look for Mystique, that looks like that does look pretty good, actually. This is my opinion. It looks pretty good there. Journal, Volume 2, Number 1, variant cover by David Nakayama. However, it seems that the series will be less about the Quiet Council's political intrigue and more about their intrapersonal relationships, particularly the one between the aforementioned lesbian mutant couple. Um, On February 25th, Entertainment Weekly published an interview with Gillen wherein he provided further glimpses into his plans for Immortal X-Men. Now, from what I've understand over the years, there has been somewhat of an implied lesbian relationship between Destiny and Mystique. So this isn't anything really new. It was, I think, in the past more implied, but I guess what they're saying here, they're going to actually really just blow the doors wide open, and you're going to see it in full color. That's what I'm guessing. In addition to revealing Magneto's apparent resignation from the authoritative mutant group, and Emma Frost plans to host a second Hellfire Gala. Yeah, I remember Yellow Flag. A lot of people were a little upset at that, or had some very harsh criticisms for that. That they spent 12 months at a dinner party. They spent like 12 issues for a dinner party. Speaking of the Hellfire Gala, Gillen told the trade news outlet that his story will prominently explore the romance between Mystique and Destiny. Quote, Immortal X-Men. So they're gonna make it. They're gonna make the story about that. Okay, we'll see how that sells. I could only see it selling slightly better than um than when they try to have um Jonathan Kent come out. The only reason I think that it would sell a little bit more than that one is because, as I said before, it was always implied that Mystique and Destiny were involved in a lesbian relationship. So it's not like it's something where they're just doing, granted, I think it is a little bit of that as well, where they're doing it just to push an agenda. But they figure, well, now is the time to really open that thing up wide open. But quote, Immortal X-Men for me is this love story of two women across time, unquote, Gillen explained, before curiously noting, quote, saying that Destiny is Mystique's moral compass is too simple, because that implies that morals are important. Oh, morals aren't important? So, Mr. Gillen, are you trying to say now that morals aren't important? That we should just go and just do whatever we want, to hell with the consequences? That kind of thinking, dude, is dangerous as well as stupid. Quote, but she is the object of Mystique. She is the object Mystique orients herself around, unquote. He elaborated, quote, that's how I see it. She is of fundamental importance to Mystique and vice versa, unquote. And as I noted before, of course, these two were the adoptive mothers of Rogue, as I recall. The first issue of Immortal X-Men is set to hit shelves on March 30th. Are you interested in Gillen's Mystique and Destiny centric take on the Quiet Council? Let us know your thoughts. Well, let me post that question out to the rest of you. What do you get? Well, it looks like you guys have been saying some stuff here, so let's see, particularly Rick here. Let's see what he has to say here. Okay, has this touch been inappropriate? Is it's Mystique classic look? Yep. It's I remember it was the look they used on the X-Men series of the '90s. So, um, as well as actually an evolution as well, at least in the first part of evolution. Since it is not a shocker, it will probably sell less. Hmm. You might make a good point there. Plus, Mystique is not as big as Superman. Well, you got a point there. Even if it is John Kent. Yeah, I mean, you make some very good points, and even in regards to that, in regards to that whole thing of like making John Kent as Superman bisexual, making Tim Drake bisexual, that I don't like that either as a long time fan. Hey Lorenzo, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to catch some of this stuff. Will I'll be appreciated. Yeah, I just the idea of see this is one of the things that really bothers me about some of these SJW comic book writers and artists. Okay, some of these, well, I guess for lack of a better term, anti CG people. Um, okay, this is one of the things that bothers me about what they're doing here. So they're basically trying to hijack established characters to push a narrative. And the reason they're doing it is because, if you can say, oh, Superman's gay, even if it's not Clark Kent who's the one who's actually gay, even if it's his son, but the people will more focus on, oh, Superman is gay, or Superman is bi, or Robin is bi, or Batman is bi, or Wonder Woman is lesbian. Well, Wonder Woman being a lesbian was kind of implied from the beginning. Um, there were certain aspects, but that's another story for another day. You know, well, not completely true. Okay, not completely true. Yes, Wonder Woman was more, even though they lived on an island of all women, you know, but when they did go out into the real world, they could fall in love with men. So, albeit they did not need to procreate because as long as they stayed, of course, on whether you want to call it Paradise Island or Themyscira, they were essentially immortal. So they couldn't be killed. So there was no need to procreate, even though Queen Hippolyta did via making a statue. But yeah, but the idea of trying to use established characters to push agendas is it's repulsive to me. Type, yeah. Well, that is true. Okay, and the reason for that, Lorenzo, as I've talked about before, is because her creator, William Moulton Marston, along with his wife and lover, um, were into bondage fetishism. They were into the whole idea of tying people up, and the phrasing that was they used a lot was loving submission. So, um, and you do see a lot of that in a lot of the earlier Wonder Woman stories, which we'll eventually get to on Fridays during the. Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah, William Walton Marston's was the was the creator of Wonder Woman. He also was the guy who invented the lie detector machine. He was a um, let's see, I believe he was a psychology professor or psychiatric professor. Um, and he was into, granted, he was into bondage because his wife and his lover, he lived with his wife and lover. So he had two women he was involved with. Probably the pre-comic code, but yeah, yeah, exactly. That was the pre-comic code authority books. I'm talking about, Lorenzo. In fact, Wonder Woman was one of the cited reasons for the comic code authority. Okay, um, according to Frederick Worthen, okay, um, Superman was a fascist. Batman and Robin were involved in a gay relationship, in a homosexual relationship. And Wonder Woman, well, of course, it was a little bit more true with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was into bondage fetishism. So, like an interesting guy. Oh, to say the least. And again, when we start reading like Sensation Comics and some of the early issues of like Wonder Woman and some of the issues of Con Calvary and all that, we'll get into some of that. And of course, her debut appearance in All Star Comics, I believe it was number 3. Um, we'll get into all that when we get there. Um, so, anyways, so it looks like we've had a pretty good discussion on that thus far. And I do thank you guys for the likes and shares. Let's see now. So what shall we do? Looks of it. So we've had some good discussion here on that. So guess I will just move on because unless you guys have anything more you want to say about this. Um, I'm interested in the pre-code books and what led to the code. Well, hey, Lorenzo, if you're interested in that, you should start checking out my Friday streams. We're going over some of those books. Not just DC either, we just last Friday we read through like Sheena of the Jungle and in Jumbo Comics number 3. But if you are interested in those books, you should start really coming by and checking out and sticking around for the whole show on Fridays, on my shows on Friday when Batgoat and I are going through those books. Because right now we are going through those pre-code books because we're focusing, of course, on October 1938, in which this Friday um we'll be going through feature funnies. Number 15, we'll be reading The Clock and Black X. So hopefully I'll see you there and see the rest of you there as well. But anyways, let's see. What led to the code was what could be called the SJW of the time. Well, yeah. Well, I guess you could make that argument. Um, let's see. Excellent Captain Cumming was going to talk about pre-code books in his 10-cent story channel, but I'm unsure if he's gotten around to it yet. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess well, in a way, I guess Rick, though you might be right there. Well, what led to the code was there were a lot of parents that believed what was being printed in the comic books was leading to juvenile delinquency and a breakdown in morals, and it was further influenced by Frederick Worthen's 1954 book Seduction of the Innocent. Um, that's what eventually led to, and apparently Worthen started his studies on the matter in like the late 40s. I think it was like 48 or something when he started actually doing his research. for this. So let's see. All right. So, anyways, let's get ready to move on to the next article then. I've heard of seduction of the innocent. Yeah, I think it's seduction of the innocent. It's in terms of comic. I know RJ would probably know quite a bit about this too. In terms of comic history, it has a significant place in comic history for what a lot of people would believe to be for all the wrong reasons. Led to a lot of censorship. Um, led to the. Hope I haven't sidetracked you. No, I mean, hey, part of the thing I like to do, I do like to get into these conversations because it does make the stream go a little. Having conversations like this is part of the reason why it's called the mic stand. Because I would love it if we get into conversations like this with all the articles I do, and with the historical comic retrospect on Friday night. Having conversations like this can actually be quite fun. Learning about this stuff and just seeing how people interpret things and how people process things. Can be very interesting. You know, so um, so I'm all for conversations like that. You know. Anyways, getting ready to move on to the next article here. Hey, all of Funimation, Wakanim, Wakanim, and VRV content to move to Crunchyroll. Article by John F. Trent published today, and this is probably one of the bigger stories that's come out today on the anime side of it. Now, as everybody knows, Sony, which already owned Funimation, had bought Crunchyroll. There's been a big merger going on, and now Funimation, these three other companies are being absorbed into Crunchyroll, basically. So let's get to this though. Um, Crunchyroll announced that all of Funimation, Wakanim, and VRV content will move to Crunchyroll. Basically, all of it in one place, as they say. In a blog post, Crunchyroll stated, quote, Funimation, which serves millions of anime fans in over 52 countries and 10 languages, will be unifying under the Crunchyroll brand. This move will include Funimation's subsidiary, Wakanim, as well as Crunchyroll's VRV to create one subscription service for our anime fans worldwide. So they're consolidating the company, basically, is what they're doing. They're condensing it down into one IP, one identity. I guess He-Man is going there. No, I don't think He-Man. Well, which He-Man are you talking about there, Rick? Because there've been a number of He-Man series over the years. Like the newer ones I thought though were Netflix, not Crunchyroll. If you're talking about the He-Man that Kevin Smith was promoting, that that I think was actually Netflix. That was a Netflix series. All right. Crunchyroll details that Funimation will only be adding, quote, new episodes of continuing series, which means Funimation users will want to move to a Crunchyroll account as soon as possible, unquote. Basically, the idea is that they're phasing out Funimation because they're, as I said, they're condensing company. And in that, you're going to probably see a lot of people at Funimation. You're going to probably see a number of people at Funimation getting fired or being let go, to like reduce the redundancy, basically. And I do know that, from what I understand, I think Crunchyroll has its own set of VAs um, that do like with some of the series they've been involved with, where they've like been a pirate princess, for one. Let's see, Blade Runner, Black Lotus, Shenmue, all these. I think a lot of the VAs that were working on these projects were based out here in LA, and not in Dallas. So, um, let's see. A press release clarifies, quote, all new series from the upcoming spring season, the biggest on record to be announced soon, will stream only on Crunchyroll. Funimation will continue to add new episodes of current series. Okay. So they'll at least continue with what they already have, and then eventually we'll probably start weeding the stuff out. Crunchyroll CEO Colin Decker stated, quote, when we brought Funimation and Crunchyroll together last year, our top priority was to put fans first. Yeah, right. Uh-huh. Remember, these are the same people who threw Vic Mignogna under the bus. They basically tried to tar and feather his career. The He-Man by Funimation. No. Okay, no, Rick, you're confused a little bit there. The He-Man series in the 80s was not Funimation, it was Filmation. Filmation, not Funimation. It's Filmation. Filmation was an American run animation company, that started like back in the 60s, and went into the early 90s. Among the properties that were like He-Man was one of the properties, as well as She-Ra, Princess of Power. Let me see, Black Star, Brave Star, um, the original Ghostbusters. So that was Filmation, not Funimation. Um, yeah, I can see where you get confused on that. Oh, yeah. They also, like in the 70s, they did a lot of the Archie cartoons, like the Archie Show, Archie's Funhouse, U.S. of Archie. Let's see, what other stuff did Filmation do? They did a lot. They did like Groovy Ghoulies and that set of cartoons, and Groovy Ghoulies and friends, including like Lassie and the Rescue Rangers, Wacky and Packy, Frady Cat, um, Mush, New Adventures of Gilligan's Planet, all that. So similar, easy to get confused. Yep, that is true, my friend. Um, Anyways, getting back to the article here. Let's see. Okay. Unifying all of our brands and services under the Crunchyroll brand globally enables us to offer more value than ever before as we combine subs, dubs, simulcast, library, music, movies, manga, all into one subscription, unquote. Now, here's one of the big problems with that, though, and I know Yellow Flash has also talked about this. Funimation started to become real powerful in the anime industry during the anime crash of the late 2000s, when a lot of the companies were starting to shut down, and Funimation was buying up a lot of those properties. They bought up, of course, One Piece from the New York crew. They bought up all the Dragon Ball they were when and in the late 2000s there, early 2010s, when they started buying up a lot of properties, and ADV also crashed, but eventually came back as Sentai later. Um, Sentai is kind of the successor to ADV, for all intents and purposes. But but the problem with Funimation being as big as it is, and now kind of becoming bigger by being merged into Crunchyroll, it's giving them a monopoly on the anime dub scene. Now, granted, you still have Sentai being active. Um, Ocean Studios does some stuff now and again, but basically, at this point, it's almost all Funimation. They've pretty much have become a monopoly, with the exception of a couple like now TPCI in New York. They're but that's just specifically more Pokemon. Um, and you do have like Bang Zoom out here, but Bang Zoom is still kind of in bed and to a certain degree with Crunchyroll and Sony and all of them as well. So it's becoming more and more a monopoly, which is a shame. You know, I liked it better when you had 6 competing dub capitals in North America competing with each other for properties. And, you had like the 2 up in Canada. You had Ocean Studios in Vancouver. You had its subsidiary in Calgary, Blue Water Studios. You had the studios in New York, Central Park Media, NYAV Post, which I think still is kind of active, even though they do work with Funimation as well. Michael Sinterniclass and his people, but TPCI, I think G Kids is still based out of New York, and they picked up a lot of properties as well. But like the New York properties, and then you got Sentai now, or you had ADV in Houston, which is which for, as I said, for all intents and purposes is Sentai. And then you had out here in LA, Biz Media is still pretty active. Their distribution offices are up in San Francisco, but the their recording studio, Studiopolis, is in LA. I think it's in Burbank or something like that, or Burbank. So it was. I thought it was a lot better when it was like that, as opposed to now. And you could find a lot of talent across all of that. I have a couple of the Archie series from the 70s. Yeah. Anyways, hello everybody. Hey, I have got to go, starting my stream in about 2 minutes. All right, well, thanks for popping in there, Rick. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it when you guys come in. Hopefully you guys get a lot out of the content. And of course, I keep these up, so you guys can always come back and watch them again if there's anything you missed or anything you wanted to catch. So I guess I'll talk to you later then, Rick. Hopefully everybody else is still enjoying the content as well. So we'll continue on. We'll continue on with the article here. Let's see. Yeah. So just me going on that little diatribe. I haven't gone on a diatribe like that in quite a while, and I enjoyed it. Oh boy. He added, quote, the new Crunchyroll is the realization of a dream, and we are grateful to the Oh, that does remind me to let me finish this, and then I'll get back to another point I was going to make. To the creators of anime and millions of fans who have joined us making the community what it is today, unquote. Now, since Crunchyroll is essentially becoming Sony's kind of becoming a monopoly in the dub market. The problem now is that they are going to raise prices. They are more like they're going to say that no, we're not going to raise prices. But if there's no competition against them, if there's nobody against them to compete against them, you know, then one, they're going to raise prices, and it's also going to encourage piracy too. Okay, it's going to encourage that as well. So, and I know Hero Hay brought that point up as well. You know that you probably will get people pirating more. So um, so. And there's Faye Valentine, the real Faye Valentine, not that Netflix garbage we got. As part of the press release, they revealed that Crunchyroll's library is now over 40,000 sub and dub episodes, with the company planning to add more daily in the coming weeks. Crunchyroll pricing will be unchanged with the addition of Funimation, Wakanim, and VRE. Maybe in the immediate future it will be, but it won't last for too long. I would say within a year, the pricing will go up significantly within a year. This announcement means that there are dozens of new shows available to watch on Crunchyroll. The full list of shows now added to Crunchyroll includes 243 um 243 Sailing High School Boys Volleyball Club sub and dub, Dachi and Shinamura sub and dub, um, Akashic Records of Bastard Magic Instructor dub, sub and dub of Akudama Drive, Are Foresta from Commonplace to World. Basically most of these are subs and dubs. I was just gonna go down here. I won't read all of these because it would take quite a while to. They obviously went through. Well, I guess I can because we do have the. I guess we do have the time to do it. So, um, Aru Fuesta from Commonplace to World's Strongest sub and dub of Attack on Titan Junior High, Back Arrow sub and dub, the first 170 episodes of Black Clover dub, Blood Blockade Battlefront dub, Blood Blockade Battlefront Beyond dub, sub and dub of Bofuri. I don't want to get hurt, so I'll max out my defense. Yes, I remember there was an article we read about a while back where there was a controversy there, going back to how one of the girls was dressed in it or whatever. Bottom tier character Tomazaki sub and dub of Bungo and Alchemist, Gears of Judgment, sub and dub of By the Grace of the Gods, sub and dub of Cautious Hero. The hero is overpowered but overly cautious. Charlotte dub North America. Let's see, North America, Australia, New Zealand, Latin America only. I'm guessing. Let's see. Combatants will be dispatched. Sub and dub of Cowboy Bebop, Darling in the Franxx dub, the 3 Data Live series dub, Death March to the Parallel World Rhapsody dub, sub and dub of Dreamlord Retry, Dr. Stone dub, Dr. Stone Season 2 dub, which were both on Toonami, by the way. Dragon Ghost House Hunting sub and dub, Fate Grand Order Absolute Demonic Front, Babylonia dub, just in the North America, Australia, New Zealand, and Latin America only. Fire Force, the Fire Force, both seasons, which were both on Toonami as well. The 2 seasons of Fruits Basket. Oh, wait, all 3 seasons of Fruits Basket. The final season is the newest one, the one that came out in 2019. The other 2, I think, are from earlier. Full Dive, This Ultimate next gen full dive RPG is even bleepier than real life. Sub and dub. Let's see, the dub of Goblin Slayer, the dubs of all the High School DxD series, Horimiya, sub and dub, but only in North America, Australia, Latin America. Same goes for Hortensia Saga. How heavy are the dumbbells you lift? Sub and dub. How not to, let's see, the how not to summon a demon lord. That dub. Hunter. Now I don't know which Hunter episodes 1 through 75. Actually, that might be the 2011 series because I think the 1999 series only went to 52 episodes, but I don't think Funimation has that series. They might have the newer one, the 2011 series. Let's see. Uh, all right, so as we continue on here, let's see. Hioka sub and dub, the subs and dubs of the two seasons of Kaguya-sama, Love is War, sub and dub of Kimono Jihan, 3 seasons of Kingdom, sub and dubbed, Kiss Him, Not Me, dub, Kuma Bear, sub and dub, Life Lessons with Yorimichi, Onisan, Log Horizon, sub and dubbed, Mars Red, sub and dubbed, Megalobox, uh, dubbed, Miss Caretaker of Sunahara, so dub and sub. The dub of Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, Moriarty the Patriot, sub and dub. Muyo and Roji's Bureau of Supernatural Investigation, sub and dubbed. Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, sub and dub. My First Girlfriend is a Gal, dub. All 5 seasons of My Hero Academia, dub. Origami, dub. Or let's see, Other Side Picnic, Our Last, basically all these titles here. See them for yourself. Even I realize that's getting a little long there. I figured since we're already past the hour mark, so and I still got some wrestling news to go over, so I'll just move on and get to the rest of the article here. With this announcement, Crunchyroll is offering 60 days of Crunchyroll Premium for free to the Funimation, Wakanim, and VRV subscribers. According to the blog post, quote, subscribers will receive an email with their unique link to redeem, unquote. It's unclear what will happen to Funimation, Wakanim, and VRV. Crunchyroll did not provide any details on when those services might be shuttered. But they are going to get shuttered eventually. It's just a matter of time. What do you make of Funimation, Wakanim, and VRV all combining under Crunchyroll? Yeah, they're forming a monopoly, and apparently the Congress decided to back that monopoly. So that's what it's coming down to here. So, anyways, so aside from that, is this yeah? That was a Crunchyroll lineup. I was just going through. I just stopped about partway through because I realized it was getting a little too long there. So Anyway, so we got through the articles. There are a couple other news items though I can talk about here on for on the pro wrestling side of it. So there's some news coming out. So here's some of the news in regards to WrestleMania 38 coming up in about a month here. So one of the big news items which I talked about yesterday was Vince McMahon possibly getting back in the ring, at age 76 now. Sounds like they're setting up a match between him and commentator slash part-time wrestler Pat McAfee, guy who provides the color on SmackDown. So they're possibly setting up a match between those two. Now, granted, okay, I know Vince is for a guy who's 76. He's in good shape. He's in pretty good shape. That's kind of remarkable in of itself. However, I don't know if having a 76-year-old really trying to get into the ring, even if it is just for one match, is really something that they should be pitching. Granted, I know there have been a number of guys that have wrestled well into their 60s and 70s. Terry Funk just having to retire just a few years ago, and I think he was in his 60s when he retired. I know like Giant Baba, who was 61 when he passed away, had wrestled almost all the way up to the end. So did Andre the Giant, even though Andre the Giant was much younger at 46. But that was, of course, that's another story in altogether. So that's one of the stories. Another story is, so it looks like they just now put it out there that they're now pushing a match between Edge and AJ Styles, which is supposed to be a dream match. Now, granted, these guys are actually part of the same generation. It wasn't like a dream match that was across separate generations. These guys were part of the same generation. Let's see. The monopolies are a major problem. Media outlets often engage in social engineering, which is true. It's funny how you use the term social engineering because, as kind of lately I've been watching the 90s X-Men series, the animated series. And one of the episodes, I've been watching it more as kind of a time filler, not necessarily playing down, just marathon watching it whenever, I don't feel like I have anything else to do or whatever. But in one of the episodes, they had Beast, who was voiced at the time by George Buza. He used one of the lines he said in there was, "You social engineers." So that was kind of interesting how you said that. But yeah. So with that though, with some more WrestleMania, you know, 38 news, they're still, of course, pushing a possible title unification match for the with the WWE and Universal titles on the line. The WWE champion, I believe, being Brock Lesnar, and the Universal champion being Roman Reigns. Are looking possibly to unify the titles, at least for a short while. Even leftists like Professor Naomi Chomsky used to talk about manufacturing consent or engineering consent. Yep. hmm Yeah. But with as I said, with the wrestling news, they're looking to, at least for the short run, unify the two titles and possibly have the that one unified title be defended on both brands. Now that was something that the NWA did actually back in its heyday, in the territory days, where the world champions who were now, as I mentioned the other day, prior to the national expansion in the 80s, right? NWA only recognized, really, like, I think it was only like three, maybe four world championships. The men's world heavyweight championship, the World Junior Heavyweight Championship, the World Women's Championship, and the World Women's Tag Team Championship. Those are the four titles that were recognized across the entire NWA. You did have a um, number of territories recognize their own claim to world tag team titles, but none of them had a world heavyweight title, singles world heavyweight title. The only one was the NWA world title. So wasn't really until the 90s that you really got that. So yeah, so let's see, any other WrestleMania? All right, there isn't much more aside from, again, title unification match between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, with both the WWE and the Universal Championship on the line. There was last night. There was a new champion crowned on Raw last night. Finn Balor, also known as the Demon, defeated Damian Priest to become the new United States Heavyweight Champion. So on last night's Raw, Finn Balor became the new United States Heavyweight Champion, taking the title off of Damian Priest. So there's that. As I said, also McMahon possibly getting back in the ring at age 76 here. Title unification. Yeah. In the WWE, Lorenzo. That's when you had like two major titles. And you essentially unify them into one title, to where there's like, quote unquote, an undisputed heavyweight champion. There's like one champion. It's like right now, the way that the WWE is doing it, they have a world champion each brand. So they have like a Raw world champion, which is, I think, the home to the Universal Championship, and you have a SmackDown world title, which is the SmackDown world title, I believe, is the WWE Championship. So what they're doing is, each brand has their own world champion, and so they don't go back and forth. So what they're talking about doing is, of course, unifying those two world champions into one championship, and then having that one champion basically appear on both shows. Each show has, right now, each show has their own world champion, basically. So that's what they're talking about with title unification. So let's see. With that, now let me get to some NWA news, because NWA will be having later this month, I believe it's on the, let's see, the 19th and 20th of this month, they'll be hosting their Crockett Cup event. That sounds confusing. Yeah, it can be. Those brand extensions they do can be confusing. But if you get into it, get into some of the history of it too. I mean, I don't really watch wrestling as much anymore, but I have been covering it and started covering it more. I usually cover more like older wrestling stuff, but I've been starting to put, since I do kind of, say that I do wrestling news, I've been starting to do that a little bit more too here. But anyways, getting to the NWA news, the National Wrestling Alliance news, this month, the 19th and 20th, when I was a kid, WWF was the big thing. Yeah, well, okay. So if you're talking about back in the 80s, yeah, the WWF was probably the one that was NWA was still around. NWA, AWA, World Class, at Mid South. They were all still around. They just weren't as you know, they just NWA was kind of like, okay, so the main NWA group was the Mid Atlantic territory, which is Jim Crockett Promotions. And of course, in late 1988, Jim Crockett Promotions, Mid Atlantic area, which had which had absorbed a number of the territory of the older NWA territories, including the Georgia Territory, the Florida Territory, the Central States Territory. They absorbed all those into what became World Championship Wrestling. Ted Turner bought out Jim Crockett, and that's what led to WCW. And the AWA eventually faded out of existence by 91. World Class had joined up with had merged with Continental Wrestling Alliance to form the USWA, based out of Memphis. That was Jerry Lawler's territory. Yeah, but prior to the national expansion of the 80s, wrestling was more of a territorial business, which means wherever you were raised, you had a particular, whatever part of the country you were in, the wrestling you would get would be the local wrestling. So, like let's say prior to 1979, when the WWF was known as WWWF, it was based out of the Northeast. So if you lived like anywhere between like New England and, let's say, as far south as Washington D.C., and of course as far west as Western New York and Western Pennsylvania, you got WWF programming. So the territorial system, unless you've studied or spent any time with it, can be quite a confusing thing to. Was the AWA the one that had chicken wire on the side of the rings, barbed wire? No. You're probably thinking of ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling. The AWA, which was the American Wrestling Association, was the territorial. It was a territory that was owned by the Gagnes, Vern Gagne, Greg Gagne. They essentially owned that territory. They were based out of Minnesota. They were formerly an NWA territory prior to 1960. AWA was an NWA territory prior to 1960. It was known as NWA Minnesota. But then in 1960, along with like NWA Chicago, I believe, the Wisconsin area, the Dakotas, some of those areas merged together to form. They basically broke away from the NWA and formed the AWA, and they would do show. They would basically promote throughout the Midwest. The one you're thinking of with the barbed wire, with the hardcore wrestling, that was ECW, which they were inspired by companies like Japanese companies like Frontier Martial Arts Wrestling, FMW. Let's see, what was on the other? I'm trying to think here. Let's see. Yeah, FMW, a few like hardcore wrestling federations. But you're thinking of like ECW, probably, depending upon where you were from, could also be JAPW, Jersey All Pro, Combat Zone, Extreme Pro out here, IWA Mid South. So I heard before that wrestling used to be yes, that's basically what I was just telling you, Lorenzo. Prior to the national expansion of the 1980s, when, like, I'm from Michigan. Okay. So Now, if you don't mind, Lorenzo, can you tell me how old you are so I can kind of get an idea of when you would have been watching wrestling when if you don't mind. I mean, if you would prefer not to, I understand. But if you could tell me your age, so hey Robert, glad you're here. We're talking some wrestling here. Um some wrestling history here. Anyways, Lorenzo, if you can like at least give me an idea of your age so I can kind of get an idea of what about the time period you grew up in. I can probably give you more of an idea of what you were probably watching or had available to watch. Yeah, so actually, I like this because it's been a while since we've actually done this, where we just kind. I was born, so you're a year younger than I am. You're like 45, maybe 46, depending upon when your birthday is. So you're basically a year younger than me, or a little less. So that means you would have probably been growing up in the 80s, which would have been, and you're from Michigan. So let's see. So as a very young kid, probably like when you were like 5, 6, 7, you would have probably been getting the last before they finally shut their doors in 81. You've probably been 5 years old when this happened, when NWA Detroit, which was owned by Ed Farhat, better known to most fans as the Sheik, closed its doors. They closed their doors in, so you might have been catching some of their programming. Cool. So we're in the same age range. Yeah. Um, then as the 80s went on, you would obviously, yes, you would have been getting like probably by 84, 85, you would have been getting, let's see, you would have been getting the WWE program and WWF programming because it was being syndicated across the country. Um, if you had cable, you'd have also been getting NWA programming through like TBS with like World Championship Wrestling, NWA. Initially you would have been getting like NWA Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling and NWA Worldwide, which were Jim Crockett promotions. I figured you and I were close in age. Yeah. Um, let's see what other. So as I said, the Detroit territory would have been closed down by 82. So but then you would have ended up getting the WWE programming or WWF programming at that time. If you had cable, you would have been probably getting, since you're from Michigan as well. Let's see, if you had cable, you would have been getting the NWA programming, the Jim Crockett promotions programming. Um, I think I had cable as a teen. So as a teen, let's see. So let's just say 13 to 18. So when you were maybe like middle school to high school, let's see, 89, 89 to 94. So late 80s. So by the late 80s, early 90s, you would definitely been getting WDF programming because it was being syndicated all across the country by that point. And if you had cable, you would have been getting the like primetime wrestling, all American wrestling, a lot of the programs that were showing up on USA Network. Um, you would have also been able to get a lot of the like NWA programming, the NWA Mid Atlantic programming, WCW. By that point, in the late 80s, 89 and 94, that would have been WCW. You would have been getting a lot of the WCW program. By 89, by the time you were probably 13, Ted Turner had already bought out Jim Crockett Promotions, and it was going by WCW. The company's name was going by WCW at that point, yet they were still an NWA affiliate, even though by that point they were the NWA affiliate at that point in time, as they had bought up they had absorbed most of the other territories. The only exception was the Pacific Northwest Territory, which ran all the way up until 92. Um, and then and then let's see. So if in the early 90s, you would have been getting EC. Now, the very early days of ECW, when it was still known as Eastern Championship Wrestling, it was initially an NWA affiliate. I wonder if the 90s is when American wrestling started getting influenced by. Um, actually, yeah, yes, you, you, you're quite astute there, Lorenzo. That is true because a lot of the hardcore promotions that we know of today, now ECW, of course, no longer exists. They closed down in 2001. But a lot of the others that are still around, like Jersey All Pro in New Jersey, Combat Zone Wrestling, which started out in New Jersey and I think did move to Philadelphia after ECW closed. Power Propane Wrestling, 3PW, IWA Mid South. They all started getting their starts in the late 90s, early 2000s. You know, and they were bringing about the hardcore wrestling came about as kind of being an alternative to like what was being produced. Like a lot of fans were getting tired of either the WWF's kind of cartoony presentation and kind of the old, kind of the Southern's wrestling, you know. So there was a lot of fans out there who were looking for something different. They were getting that with the hardcore wrestling that was coming over from Japan. So, and I'm glad we went on. Glad we got into this because we actually had a pretty good conversation there. I do want to get back real quick. Let's see. Uh, there were a couple of cheesy Canadian wrestling tropes too. Troops too. Um. Well, yeah, Canada had its own wrestling promotions as well. Stampede Wrestling, based out of Calgary, which was the Hart family promotion. You had Montreal was a hotbed for wrestling for a number of years. Initially with I can't even remember what the older one was, but I knew in 75, like 75 to 85, 87, there was international wrestling there, which was run by the Rougeau family, Jacques, Ramon, and their father and uncle. I just remember seeing some really dangerous looking stuff, including stuff that could have sliced a throat if the choreography went back. Oh yeah, you mean when guys like going through tables or guys going through like fluorescent light bulbs? Is that the kind of thing you're talking about, or like as you mentioned earlier, the barbed wire matches? Yeah, yeah. I live near Calgary. Okay, so Robert, where you probably grew up watching a lot of stuff from the Hart family then, because Stampede Wrestling was big in the like 70s and 80s. Even though in '84, Vince McMahon did buy out Stampede for a year, but then ended up selling the territory back to Bruce Hart. Barbed wire, yeah. Now, speaking of some NWA, modern day NWA, as I mentioned last week, Matt Cardona, who wrestled in the WWE as Zack Ryder, had recently become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Um, and as I was mentioning before, too, never liked wrestling, heard about it though. Um, yeah. So, as I mentioned earlier, of course, this month on the 19th and 20th, the NWA is holding their Crockett Cup event at the Nashville Fairgrounds. The main event will be, of course, Matt Cardona, who wrestled as Zack Ryder um, in the WWE. Um, he he will be defending the 10 pounds of gold, the NWA World Heavyweight title, against former champ Nick Aldis. Um, let's see. One man had another man's neck next to the barbed wire. I knew it was likely choreographed, um, but it still had to be dangerous. Yeah, that stuff can be dangerous. In fact, Mick Foley and Terry Funk had engaged in numerous barbed wire matches. Mick Foley, of course, known in wrestling circles as Cactus Jack, as well as Mankind during his time in the WWE. Terry Funk became a hardcore legend later in life. You know, he was more of a traditional catch as catch can wrestler earlier in his career. You know, but like later in his career, he became a hardcore legend. Yeah. So the Crockett Cup, which comes up here in March, in like in let's see, in a couple weeks here. Let's see, as I told you, Matt Cardona will be defending the NWA World Heavyweight title against Nick Aldis, which is also the NWA World Women's title will be defended in a three-way match, as Chelsea Green got added into the match with Kelly Rain against can't even think of the girl's name now, unfortunately. I remember a bad Stampede Wrestling accident um, that looked low stakes. A man was supposed to be tossed onto a row of empty folding chairs and broke his back. I think, yeah, that stuff can happen. I have a lot more respect for the wrestlers as an adult than I did as a kid. My folks just thought wrestling was silly, I think. Well, part of that too is how it was presented, Lorenzo. Again, now chances are you probably didn't get a chance to see a lot of the Detroit wrestling shows, but I've gone back and I've watched some of the old Detroit wrestling shows, and you could argue that NWA Detroit was, which again was the promotion that was owned by Ed Farhat, who's better known as Sheik. Okay, considered one of the more violent wrestlers of the old days. Okay, the Sheik was the man who trained Sabu. You guys know who Sabu is, the homicidal, suicidal, genocidal, wrestler. Um, I've heard of wrestlers sometimes die. Yeah, some of them have actually died, Lorenzo. Some due to wrestling accidents, as what happened with, I think it was Paraguay Jr. a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, when Rey Mysterio Jr. was getting ready to do the 619 on him, but when he got dropped toe hold into the second rope, he snapped his neck, and that instantly killed him. There are others who quite literally, and then there was another famous one that happened back in '72 with Ray Gunkel. He died of a heart attack in the ring after Ox Baker had executed a heart punch on him. Now, a heart punch is, as it said, it's a straight punch right to the chest. Now, the problem with that, though, is that the heart punch can be a very dangerous move, because if you hit a person's chest at just the right moment, catch an in between beat, you could kill somebody. I know, like Ted DiBiase's father, Iron Mike DiBiase, Million Dollar Man's father, died in the ring of a heart attack. So it can happen. I heard about heart attacks. I mean, you have to think about it. Yes, they are choreographed and stuff, but those guys also have to train to take bumps. You know, those guys just like stage actors have to learn how to take bumps or how to take falls to protect themselves. You know, um, and contrary to some people's belief, they're not bouncing around on a trampoline. That's canvas. That is canvas. There aren't any springs in there. There isn't any bouncy stuff there. You know, it's all wood and metal and canvas. So yeah, let's see. Let me get caught up with some of what you guys are talking about here. Let's see. I saw that. Saw that. Let's see. Robert saying here on the news they showed the chairs, one of which had tape on it. After the tape um, were break chairs, but he got thrown into real ones, and it could have. Yep. Um, Actually, in fact, there's a very famous movie documentary follows some of this stuff too, called Beyond the Mat, which follows the stories of Mick Foley, Terry Funk, and Jake Roberts in their, at the time it was done in 1999, so they were covering the time as Mick Foley was preparing for his Hell in a Cell match against Undertaker. Um, Terry Funk, who was already by that point, I think in his late 50s, early 60s, was getting involved for ECW's first pay per view, Barely Legal. And Jake Roberts was just a struggling wrestler on the indie scene, dealing with his demons. A Hart brother fell from the rafters without his heart on. Yeah, you're talking about the Owen Hart incident. The harness was on initially, but what ended up happening was it was not locked in properly. Okay, what they were trying to do, that's something that it's a stunt. It's kind of a stunt they were doing in professional wrestling quite a bit at the time. In the WWE, Shawn Michaels had done it as well. You'd been seeing Sting do it too in WCW, where they would basically be repelling from the ceiling. Now, the background on that, on the Owen Hart situation, was earlier in Owen Hart's career, before he started really breaking, before he broke out in like 93, 94, around there. Um, One of his earlier stints in the WWE had him donning a mask and calling himself the Blue Blazer. Kind of a superhero gimmick, pre-hurricane days, all that, come to the ring with a cape on and the like, basically lower mid Carter initially. So what they decided to do at that point, now there was some speculation as to this too, but as a nod to that history, they decided to bring that character back and have Owen portray him again. And so, as part of that, Owen would Owen would start to rappel down from the ceiling. Now, the thing was though is that Owen was not entirely comfortable with that, but he did it anyways. Now, there had been some speculation, and that's all it is, speculation. Owen was, this was after, of course, the Montreal screw job. Bret had already left the WWF at the time. Davey Boy Smith had left the WWF. Jim Neidhart had left the WWF. Even Rick Rude had left the WWF. A lot of these guys had left in part due to the fact that they didn't like what would have. Owen was still, unfortunately, under contract. Now, that was back in 97, of course, 97, 98. But Owen's contract was coming up here in 99. And there were rumors circulating that he was possibly, once his contract expired, he was going to go over to WCW to be with his brother and the rest of his family. And Vince did not want to lose that talent. There's some speculation that they may have speculation. Nothing was ever proven, mind you. This is just speculation. Nothing was ever proven, but there was a theory or belief at one point where they actually messed with the harness on purpose to keep Owen from jumping to WCW. That was a rumor that was going on back then, but yeah. But basically, Owen fell from the harness. The harness was not secured properly, so so he ended up falling to his death because of that. So let's see what else we got here. I heard about heart attacks. Yeah, as I said, there were a few of those. He was just supposed to zip line down. Yep. Rappel zip line, Well, the zip line, I think, is what Shawn Michaels used. Punching someone in the chest sounds extremely dangerous. It can be. I mean, and it's not just okay. So, a number of guys have had the heart punch as part of their arsenal over the years. Ox Baker was one of the more famous ones. Former WWF champion Stan Stasiak used the heart punch as well. Even earlier in his career, Undertaker, when he was still known as Mean Mark Callis in WCW, he used it early on in his career. I don't think he ever used it in the WWE, but when he was in WCW, he would use the heart punch. But yes, a heart punch can be dangerous because it depends upon the timing. It depends upon the timing. If you punch the chest at just the right moment, you can cause a cardiac arrest because if you punch at the exact moment in between beats, that's going to disrupt the rhythm and it's going to cause a cardiac arrest. And it doesn't just happen. I mean, I don't know, even on an episode of ER, they had that very same thing happen where a karate instructor had kicked one of his, during class, kicked one of his students in the chest. And the way they explained why the kid died from just being kicked in the chest was because he got him at just the right moment, just between the heartbeats. So, where does the acting style come from in wrestling, Mike? Is it a particular theater tradition? Okay, no, no, okay, so as we know professional wrestling today, it's classified more as what they call sports entertainment. So the acting side of it is they use a wrestling match, even though particularly the WWF they use more like traditional, they use promo work more now than but the idea is that the wrestling matches are designed to tell a story, whether it's an enhancement match or a match between mid-carders or a main event match or a title match. The whole design of it is the match is supposed to work as a story. So, you're, the idea like things like drawing heat of now again, guys do get legitimately hurt. That's why you can't call wrestling fake. It's choreographed, yes, but you can't necessarily call it fake because people can get hurt in there. But the acting, now there was a time too when you had circus wrestling too, um, and you had the whole thing with wrestling. But now up, let's say through the 70s, maybe even into the early 80s, wrestling was always promoted as a sport. You know, now let's say prior to the 90s, and this is another thing that happened in the 90s, Lorenzo, where some of the lines between the good and bad, good guys and bad guys started to get blurred a little bit more. Prior to the 90s, okay, you always had what they called faces, who were the good guys, and heels, who were the bad guys. And of course, a face turn was when a bad guy turned good, and a heel turn was when a good guy turned bad. Okay? So, in your traditional storytelling, of course, you had to have a good guy and a bad guy. The bad guy would usually be the one who would be like breaking the rules, you know, and the good guy would always be the one trying to wrestle more technically. Now, in that, of course, you would be, and they do this with their promo work as well. You know, that's where the acting came in. Was the promotion. It's like you look at some of the characters that the guys had, like for example, Buddy Rogers, right? Buddy Rogers, even he took some of his antics from gorgeous George Wagner, kind of like the Nature Boy gimmick that, of course, eventually Ric Flair took up. You know, these blonde, very good-looking guys. Are you talking about K? Yeah, I'm talking about kayfabe. And prior to the '90s, kayfabe was sacrosanct, which means that you didn't break kayfabe. If you somehow broke kayfabe, good guys always hung out with the good guys. Bad guys always hung out with the bad guys. Okay, even outside of the ring, they never interacted with each other unless it was in an antagonistic way. Okay, guys. I mean, I'll put it this way: Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik, Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Iron Sheik, actually got fired from the WWF back. I believe it was in '87 or 80, in '87, '88, around there, because they ended up breaking kayfabe. What ended up happening is they were out one night together. At the time, of course, Duggan was the face, and Iron Sheik, was the heel. They were arrested for smoking pot, smoking marijuana. However, they did not get fired from the WWF for smoking pot or getting arrested for smoking pot. They got fired for breaking kayfabe because Duggan was the good guy, Sheik was the bad guy, and it would make no sense to fan. Now you gotta remember too, this is even before internet. This is before social media and internet, and all these sites with the spoilers and all that. So, anyways, that was a good that's been a good conversation. We had there, Lorenzo. Which I look forward to those every now and again. We are getting close to the 2 hour mark, though. So I think I'm going to start wrapping up here. I'm glad everybody came in. thankful for all the likes and shares. Hope everybody enjoyed the content. I know we kind of got into wrestling history a bit. We really got into a pretty good conversation there. But oh, oh, you had something else you were saying too. Hold on, let me. I didn't even see that until I just jumped over to the YouTube screen here. But okay, excellent, excellent stream. Yeah, I mean, I like getting into the. Okay, I think Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler were friends, but they had to pretend that they were. Yes, okay. Actually, going to hit that up in a history segment too, in probably in April here. The Lawler Kaufman feud, that was kayfabe. Okay, that was definitely kayfabe. They were friends in real life. Now, Andy Kaufman would mock wrestling on Saturday Night Live, you know, which of course they decided to work an angle in Memphis. Okay, as I told you, back in those days there were territories. So back in those days, they, at the time it was let's see, it was Continental Wrestling Association was the name of the promotion. That was Jerry Lawler's promotion. He co-owned it basically with Jerry Jarrett. They had basically they had eventually taken over that portion of the territory from Nick Goulas when it was still NWA Mid America. Okay. But yes, that was again, and that was part of what led to also the national interest in wrestling too. You know, the CWA and the Memphis area were one of the only other promotions that was getting any national attention. That was due to the whole Lawler Kaufman feud. Even what Kaufman, even when Kaufman died, Lawler had to pretend they had been it. No, actually, I don't think that's true. Okay, the angle, after the angle was done, they could. I mean, if I think they talk about this in the book and in the movie, Man in the Moon. You know, when they were doing the angle, yes, they had to pretend to be enemies, but it's been well established that everybody knows now they were good friends. So there's no need for them to pretend like they hate each other's guts. But anyways, um, let me get this all closed out here, and I thank you guys again for being here. Don't forget Friday, of course, we're doing our weekly historical comic retrospect. I'll have Batgoat with me. I'll be going over Feature Funnies number 15 from Quality Comics, Volume 1, number 15. We'll be reading The Clock and Black X, maybe a few others, depending upon how much time I think Lawler initially pretended they were enemies after Kaufman died. Yeah, again, I don't think so because it was long known by that point that they were actually friends in real life. So, um, but anyways, so with that, guys, I thank you for being here. So, today being, of course, the first day of March, March 1st, 2022. Why don't we go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history? Let's see, 2012, 2014, and 1952. Okay. All right. So, hey, Batgoat. Thanks for dropping in. Right at the end of the show, though. But you're at least in time for history, and you can always go back and watch. Um, I stream every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Here's my last stream. All right. So with that, guys, today being Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! And first off, we're going to head back to 1952 as on this date 70 years ago today, um, American film director, let's see, American film director of Italian descent. Um, so the film director and an animator, I believe. Yeah, animator and film director Gregory LaCava passed away on this date. Um, actually, just shy of his 60th birthday, just like 9 days shy of his. He was 59. Passed away on this date back in 1952. Best known for the films including My Man Godfrey and Stage Door, which earned him nominations for Academy Best Director. So on this date in 1952, great animator and film director Gregory LaCava passed away at the age of 59. So, history. I lost my shorts on bingo tonight. Hey, Batgo. Hey, Lorenzo. That's sad. He didn't live longer. Well, that was back in 52. Making it to 60 was still, kind of a big thing then. Um, probably smoked a carton a day. Yeah, that was 1952 though. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece of Nietzsche history here. On this date, 10 years ago today, back in 2012, independent promotion Next Level Pro Wrestling, a Canadian wrestling promotion based in Montreal, Quebec, opened its doors. And I would imagine they're still going on today. So on this date, 10 years ago today, independent promotion Next Level Pro Wrestling was established in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Happy 10th anniversary to them. And finally, um, on this day, 8 years ago today, the 15th issue of Batman Beyond 2.0 was published on DC Digital. It was 99 cents. It was 20 pages. So let's see, Second Chances, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Tony Silas, Saldia Tenofonte did the lettering, and Emilio Lopez. So Batman Beyond 2.0, the 15th issue, was published on this date 8 years ago today. So with that, I thank everybody for being here. Let's see. I'm going to peace out and rock hard to Rebecca Black Friday. Tra la la. I love the Batman Beyond show. Is this related? Probably is. That's probably a comic that may have been based on that Kanan. Um, actually, I don't. You weren't here earlier, but we actually went over a news story with Batman Beyond the White Knight, where they're considering race swapping Terry McGinnis to being half Asian. So if you want to learn more about that, you can go back and watch the earlier parts of the show. But anyways, guys, I thank everybody for being here. tonight. I thank everybody for all the likes and shares. And I will hopefully see you all back here tomorrow. And don't forget, Friday, of course, is our historical comic retrospect. So, anyways, guys, I'll see y'all tomorrow.